Hi everyone and welcome back. So it's time to deep dive into the React testing, and here we are going to explore all different options for the testing. Okay, so in React what we are testing basically, we are testing the components that I created a button component that look like this on the browser, but when I do the real testing, is it acting like that? Like you simply create a counter. When you click on button multiple times, you are increasing a counter. So what you will be testing? Okay, first of all, button is rendering properly or not. You can also create a snapshot that we will cover later, the snapshot testing, which what it talks about is it compares the snapshot of the button by doing the rendering. Okay, the other thing is you will be first of all rendering the button component, then you will be firing an event. Okay, there is a click action you will trigger, and then you will check, okay, the counter has been increased by 1 or not. This is what you will do in the testing. So it's like a DOM testing. You are simulating the different events, click events, scroll events, and entering the content in the text field, and then submitting a form, and then checking that event has been fired or not, and all these things. Okay, so overall we are doing the DOM testing, and we are basically rendering the component. So why we need a testing library? We can do it easily with the React DOM, because React DOM is doing the same thing. It is a React library, the core library, which is helping us to mount the component onto some DOM node. That is what we are doing here. We created a div node, okay, and then here we are rendering this div input. Input is your custom component you have created onto this container node, and here you can check the container div.query selector input to have a default value or not, right? This is the test case you have written. This is fine. We can use a React DOM library, but when you have to write a well-managed testing of a different components, then React DOM become tedious, and you have to look for alternatives, because the React DOM is not made for traversing the DOM in the test cases and simulating the events and all these things. It is doing indirectly the same thing on the browser, but not made for traversing and doing the snapshot test and all. Okay, so what all terminologies we are using here? First of all, let's clear that out. So we are using Jest. Let me just write it down. So Jest is a testing framework. So you can see Jest is a runner, which is going to provide us a testing framework. And the assertions and the mocking, all these things Jest is going to provide. Now, how we can do the testing for React component? Like mocking, writing the testing framework is not enough. We also need to traverse, simulate the events, inspect the DOM, inspect the component if component is rendered properly or not. So for that, we have two other libraries we have to use with Jest, which is Engine. This is the one library, and another popular library in the React world is React testing library. Okay, we are first going to talk about React testing library, then we will talk about Engine. Engine is developed by Airbnb engineers. This is again another library. What it does, it is actually helping us to render the component using its own methods. It is helping us to assert, manipulate, and traverse your component output, because at the end we are rendering the component somewhere, and then we are checking the component, different parts of the components, we are traversing it, we are manipulating the component by simulating some events, right? This is what the Engine does, right? So Engine provides us a different utility methods. That is also another important part. Okay, it provides 3 different utilities which we need to understand just for the basics, so we are clear. So Engine provides these 3 different utilities which are important. One is a mount, shallow, render. These are the 3 different ways in which you can render your component. You can mount, you can do a shallow mount, you can do a render mount. Okay, what is the difference here? Mounting means full DOM rendering including the child components. Like you have the parent component and number of children component, then you can use a mounting. So this is the ideal for where you have a component that may interact with the DOM APIs or use lifecycle events and all. Okay, so we can use mount and unmount. Unmount is unmounting the component from the DOM node once you are done with the test. Shallow Shallow renders only the single component. I'm talking about this. So there are three important utilities which enzymes provide, because these are the libraries. Jest is a runner, not the library to test the React component. Jest can be used with any framework, but Jest will be used with enzyme. Jest will be used with a React testing library to test the React component. Here I'm talking particularly about React testing. Okay, so there is another option is shallow. What is the difference here? Shallow renders only a single component, not including its children. This is useful to isolate a component unit testing. Okay, let's say you have parent component, home component. You just wanted to test, okay, home component renders. It has all the divs available. It has the buttons and all these header links and all. It is good. So this is important, shallow. And as of Engine 3, shallow components do have access to the lifecycle methods by default, so you can access the lifecycle methods. Now render to a static HTML that also includes HTML does not have access to the lifecycle methods. I mean, less costly than mount and less functionality. I mean, now you can decide, okay, I wanted to test only a single component, parent, no children, shallow. I wanted to just play with the HTML, what it is rendering, render. Mount means it is going to render all set of children's. I want to play with the lifecycle events using the testing. Then you can use all these different methods. Okay, this is about engine. Now coming back to the React testing library. Here, this library we are going to use. If I show you a simple example, which so here we will start with create React app, and then we will start adding the test cases, and we will see what code is needed to test a particular component. Okay, so we'll go to our src folder, and here we have just app.js and index.js. okay, index.js is importing app component. Inside app we are rendering the, let's call it as a hello component that is inside body. Okay, this is our hello component, and we are passing some title. So this app component is something which we are going to test by passing the random titles and all. Now go to this component, and there is a hello.js, right? So what this component does, currently it's empty, but it is receiving the props. This is the title, is the props it is receiving, so we can define that. Okay, this is the title we are getting, and what all other things we are doing here, we are just having a simple JSX and one simple hook, use state hook. So const count and set count. This is how we define use state. A state is initialized with 0, and we are going to have a click method which is going to increase the state value, and this is, we are going to click from button, but to update this we can call set count, and we can set the count plus 1. Count is a initial state, and we are just increasing it by 1. Now what this component is rendering, this is interesting, and this is what we are going to test. A simple div and some paragraph and HTML tags. Let's say h1. Okay, inside h1 you are putting the title value which you are receiving in the props, and then you have p tag which is putting the count which you are keep increasing, and then there is a button type button, and here we have a click method, on click handler. On this on click handler is calling this handle click arrow function, and let's say here we are saying tap me. Okay, this is the button, so this is the valid JSX. We are ready with the component. Now what all different kind of tests we can write for it, and how to do the setup. I mean, if you are doing it with the create React app, you don't have to do anything, right? You have everything already ready. You have the package.json test script, npm run test you have to do, and for writing your tests, you can do is you can create your test folders inside your src or inside your component, I mean whatever the structure you use. So I will just create here test, let's say test. Inside this I can define my component, whatever the test case I'm going to write. Let's see, hello.test.js. I'm writing the test cases for the hello, right? So first I need to do is I will be importing the hello component here and then checking the different assertions for it. So what I'm doing is, let's say import react from react, and import body, import our component which is hello from, we have to go out from here, and then there is a components folder. Inside this I think we have hello. This is how we are importing our hello component, and then we have to, what all different test cases we are writing. Describe, I mean your test case, and this is the callback function. This is how we write our test cases, and inside describe there is a it block. This is how we are going to write the Jest test cases. Let's say I'm saying finding title. This is my first test case. Then again a simple callback, and here I'm going to write the test case. So here from React testing library, this will help us to render the component and play with that. And this render we are getting from testing library. Okay, it's not going to come. Testing library React, this is what we want. And to handle the click event, we are going to import again testing library user event. Testing library user event, because we have to simulate the click action, right? Everything is good. Now what we are going to do is we are going to render the component, right? First thing we have to do is, okay, let's say const component, and then we will fix all these things. We are going to use this render utility provided by library, and we will pass our component. This is the component. And do we have any props? Yes, we can pass the title. This is the title I'm passing. Okay, so this is my component. Now this component is, we are rendering it, but how we can inspect this component, right? So there are some utilities which the testing library provides. Like if you wanted to test, okay, that you can also check that this component is going to render a particular text, this title, somewhere in the HTML or not, right? So for that you can use get by text. So it will give us the text representation, and then we can use expect get by text. TK Sharma. The method we are going to use is to be in the document. That means the string is in the document or not. The document right. So get by text is going to get us all the text which this component is going to render, and get by text, this string is in the document or not, right? This is the simple first test case. Now other test case, what we are going to do is, this testing library provides us, okay, I wanted to check what is in the h1, what is in the paragraph tag, how can I get this button tag to click onto this. So for that we have to use the ID tags, test ID tags, and these are called as like h1 tag, right? So I will be using data des test ID. Let's say I'm calling it as a title. So data test ID, here I can put this as a count, and here I can put it as a button. Right now, using this, let's say you render the component. How can I check the title value is the same value which I am passing in the props? So you can directly inspect by using this get test by ID. Okay, these are like special placeholders, and the framework is designed in this way only. So if you wanted to use this, we can simply use get test by ID, and we can pass the ID. finding title with test ID which we have created. Okay, so here we are going to use get by test ID instead of that. Okay, same props we are passing, and now get by test ID, here I will be passing the title, and title is the props if I'm not wrong. Get by test ID title, and title is the same props which we are passing, so this should be equals to have a text content. So it should be, because we are not matching the exact word, to have a text content. These methods you will become familiar. So this title should be the same. If you want to make the exact match, then you can simply write, okay, this is starting with there is a special symbol you have to use, and ending with this, ending with the dollar. That's it. That means this title is having an exact match with this. Okay, so finding the title with the test ID. Similarly, another test case we can write, that is again on the same thing. Here we are going to use the paragraph tag, p tag, and the test ID for this is we are going to use different test ID, let's say count. Right, so we are going to get test by ID, and here we will pass count. That means give me the text content where test ID is count. Okay, and this is talking about the count. So initially that count is 0 until unless you click on the event, so that should be equal to 0. Right, now we need to find the button and do the tap. First of all, we need to find the button and do the click onto this. So this is our test. So test can be check counter value after click. Initially it is 0, that is proven here. Right, now we are doing the same thing. We are going to get the button first. So this is first is rendering, and we can use get by test ID, and test ID is the button. So this is how we can also get the DOM node. So test ID is button for that, and then we can just do, now we already have imported user event on the top, then we can use user event dot click to this button. Right, and we clicked on to this once. Now if we try to get the content, it should be equal to 1. Right, then another test case we can write is if I click onto this twice, the count should be 2. Change the description accordingly. Get by test ID, we got the button, we clicked on button twice. So this time if you click on button twice, then the value should become 2 for this count, and the count is the p tag. Here we are showing the count plus 1, count plus 2. Okay, let's see if our test cases are running. We can also check on King. You can see the messaging, like you got the explicit that user event dot click is breaking. Right, okay, so there are 2 failing. Let's see what is that, and then we'll try to fix. Check counter value after click. User event is not defined. Okay, this is this should be user event. Just a typo. Okay. And we can get the outcome now, and this will run when you save your file. One failed, which is coming from app.test.js. Don't worry about it. So everything is passing for us now. Right, so this is about the basic setup. Basic setup means how to run the test cases, how to write the test cases for a basic application like hello world application. Now we will increase the complexity of test cases for an actual application, like where you are writing a lot of hooks, routing, where you are integrating with the APIs and all these things. Okay, thanks everyone.